The Pan-American Sur cuts through the vast Nazca Desert plain with its drawings, which have engaged researchers from around the world in the attempt to explain the mystery, like a dark gash. The stretch between kilometer 419 and 465 passes right in the middle of the mysterious drawings, but from land it is impossible to understand their true aspect. At first, only stones are visible, furrows which are not that deep, and clear spaces with different colors and undefined shapes. From the tower, 14 meters high, visibility improves only a little, yet over 200 drawings and almost 13,000 geometric figures are spread over its entire expansion. Only from above is it possible to realize the true essence of the shapes traced on the ground. The Nazca Plain is one of the planet's driest and most inhospitable. In fact, rainfall only amounts to 1 cubic centimeter per year, more or less a quarter of an hour of rain over a 12-month span. A real hellish, barren and stony land, but at the same time the ideal place to trace images which can remain unchanged throughout the centuries.
Estos terrenos son muy especiales.
These lands are quite unique. After penetrating the pampas and walking over them, you realize that even in 100 years' time, the same tracks will still be here because they are formed by a layer of ferrous stones which reflect the heat during the day, forming a vortex of hot air which does not allow sand to deposit, but moves it to the side. These stones are superficial, brown, and if trodden upon, you find that the white earth emerges, thus remaining permanently exposed. That's why these lines have kept visible all these centuries.
An ideal land to preserve the geometric figures in time, but it doesn't explain how the ancient inhabitants of the area, the Nazca, could draw them and trace kilometric lines, most of which are only visible from the sky.
Many drawings can easily be observed from the hilltops or mountains which surround the desert. Others, definitely big, cannot be seen from these heights. It is extremely hard, and since they can be observed as a whole only from above, the question is, how have they been created? We don't know. It's a mystery.
Hence, as Professor Adzabake claims, in order to have an overview of the larger drawings and direct the creative work, an overview was necessary and achievable only from the height of a sufficiently high hill. But on the plain, there aren't any. Therefore, that only leaves flight. But who had the capacity to fly over this plain centuries ago? The oral tradition of the Nazca speaks clearly. The Viracochas. The figures have been drawn with an accuracy which has baffled researchers who have examined them. The zoomorphic drawings have been traced with one continuous line, meaning with a technique which is even more difficult in terms of lines and geometries. One would think these are more recent, as they are more sophisticated, but on the contrary, they are more ancient. Therefore, the logic which states that human progress grows in time fails with the regression of technical capacity. How can this be explained? Perhaps the inhabitants of the plain ran out of crucial technical support. Oral tradition helps by reporting that suddenly the Viracochas left for an unknown destination. Could this be the right explanation? When they left, the Nazca found it impossible to trace other zoomorphic figures. So they were limited to continue drawing easier lines and geometric figures. Only in modern times did man understand what had been drawn in the Nazca Plain. An era when man had realized his ancient dream, to fly. The first to discover the true nature of the inexplicable furrows traced on the ground was the American geographer Paul Kosok in 1939, while he flew over the area with light aircraft. He tried to discover the mystery, guessing it was an astronomic calendar. But the most famous researcher who tried to unveil the mystery behind these lines was Maria Reiche, a German. The scholar, affectionately called the Lady of the Pampas, also fought hard to safeguard this extraordinary site, managing to have it proclaimed Patrimony of Humanity by UNESCO. In the city of Nazca, an association and a museum have been named after her. Her grave is in the garden of the museum.
It was an order by Mary to bury her body in a tomb which we keep in this museum. She wanted to be part of this area, feel surrounded and safeguarded by these lines and drawings.
Reiche dedicated her life to studying the drawings of the plane, starting in 1949, a passion which kept her going till the very end, in 1998, the year she died. Her conjecture is amongst those most highly esteemed.
There are many conjectures, but the most widely embraced is that by German doctor Maria Reich, who claims it is a large astronomic calendar used for agriculture.
Victoria Nikitsky lives in the town of Nazca and knew Reiche during the last years of her life, when the scholar had become blind and paralyzed in her bed. She writes promotional material on the drawings in the Nazca plain and illustrates to tourists the wonderful work carried out by Maria Reiche by means of a simple plastic model.
The spider and the monkey are directly linked to the Big Dipper constellation in the case of the monkey and to the Orion constellation in the case of the spider. Both are connected to the summer solstice. This was how it was possible to forecast rainfalls.
A huge astronomic calendar. Is this the answer? But was such complexity really necessary only to achieve an astronomic calendar which, amongst other things, could be realized in a less colossal and laborious size? An astronomic calendar for agricultural use also surely had to be completed quickly for survival. But archaeologists speak of 1,500 years for its creation. In addition, why realize such a mammoth work which could only be seen from the sky, in flight? Without this capacity, the great majority of signs traced on the ground becomes inexplicable and therefore useless. Finally, many drawings, if subjected to computer inspections, find no astronomical reference whatsoever. Therefore, Reiche's studies only partially unveil the Pampas mystery. And the enigmatic figure traced on the side of a small hill seems to look and salute someone in flight. But who flew in the distant past? A plot which thickens even more over the past few years with the discovery of other drawings and geometric figures in the close-by Palpa plain. The style is similar to the Nazca, but these date further back in time and are still only comprehensible from above, in flight. Finally, the Nazca and Palpa drawings cover a total area of nearly 600 square kilometers, and, to be created, thousands of tons of stones were shifted. Only a very important reason could justify any activity of this magnitude. The Antonini Educational Museum is in the town of Nazca, where many archaeological finds of the Nazca culture are kept, the last to have inhabited this land before the Incas, who incorporated them into their empire, cancelling out all their customs and traditions. The Nazca had reached an incredible artistic and cultural level, witnessed by the exquisitely painted ceramic ware and by the sophisticated and efficient underground aqueduct system they had built. There are no elements in these finds which help clarify the mystery of the origins and the significance of the drawings of the plain, except for one engraved stone found in the Nazca tomb. The workmanship is not as accurate as that of the Ica stones, and the drawings depict elements ascribable to the daily Nazca world. But why would the Nazca engrave stones when they were perfectly capable of painting exquisitely colourful ceramic ware and weaving finely embroidered blankets? Perhaps it was a way of responding to what they had seen in finds they believed to be of great importance, like the Ica stones. Once again, the engraved stones, which were considered stones of power, reappear. Or were they perhaps even stones of knowledge? Is there a true connection between the Ica and the Nazca? A 1586 report, written by Magistrate Luis de Monzon, explained what the plains natives said about the origins of the drawings. During extremely ancient times, a small group of people called Viracochas, who differed from the Indios, reached this land, and the Indios obeyed them, followed them, and realized roads which can still be seen today. The Viracochas suddenly left, but promised to return, a memory and a promise which was kept so alive in those people to deceive the Incas and Aztecs when they met the conquistadores for the first time. The Spanish were exchanged for the gods who had returned, thus allowing a handful of men to defeat well-trained and much more powerful armies. But, truthfully, who were the Viracochas? A myth, a legend, or a historical truth? Were they the true inspirers of the great civilizations of the past? Could the gods be the survivors of a remote and forgotten civilization which had reached a level of progress equal to or higher than the current one? The Monzon Chronicle and the engraved stone exhibited at the Antonini Museum add a new important detail to the other clues, and the ancient oral traditions seem increasingly less of a myth, of a legend, to become history.